Welcome, everybody. This week, I would like to share some personal stories. Stories that if you know me or you've been to any of my classes, you've probably heard before, but they're definitely worthwhile hearing again. But first, this week's Joy of Gratitude has been sponsored as a merit for a refuah shlema, a full and complete healing for Masha Rachel Bas Chana and Chaya Rezel Bas Chana Sarah. Okay, so to the stories. For some time, we're going some years ago, I used to learn in a Beis Medrash in a shul not too far away from my home. And in this place, there was a gentleman who was poor, homeless. I'm guessing he was homeless because he would sleep on a bench inside the shul. And people would come and bring him some food inside the shul. And that's basically where he lived his life. This particular person, presumably because he had no access to any showers or anything, unfortunately, really smelled badly. And I'm extremely sensitive to smell. So I would, if I was learning in this particular shul, I would make sure that I was sitting on the far end, from the far other side of the shul to this particular person. Anyway, one day, I'm sitting, learning, and I hear this person beginning to shuffle towards me. But long before I hear the shuffling, I can already smell the smell, and it's intense. And I have to admit that I started praying inside my head, please, don't come to me. Please, I can't deal with the smell. But Hashem didn't listen to my prayer. And this man came right over to me. And he says to me in Hebrew, my knee has swollen. What should I do about it? Now, I've got no idea if this person knows that I have a little bit of a medical background, or if I was just the only one there, and therefore he thought he'd try his luck with me. But to my embarrassment, I admit, I just couldn't deal with him. I sort of said, no, I don't know anything. And I tried to encourage him to move on as fast as possible. So he starts shuffling back to his bench. Within 30 seconds, somebody comes running into the shul, runs up to me and says, are you Salasnik? I say, yes. He says, your son is on his bike outside. He's fallen over and he's scraped his knee. So of course, I jumped up. I ran outside. I found my son there. He was okay. He had a little bit of a scratch on his knee. But as I was walking back to the shul, I turned to Hashem and I said, okay, I get the message. I walked over to this person, trying to breathe through my mouth. And I sat with him for 15 minutes talking about his knee. That's story number one. Story number two. There was a time in my life where my wife and I needed to try a certain procedure, a certain thing that we needed to do. The problem was that it cost a lot of money. I think if I remember rightly, the amount was about £2,000. At that time, the £2,000 was not, we didn't have that spare. And we were discussing with each other, is this something we should do? There was no guarantees it was going to help. Should we do it? Should we not do it? We weren't sure. Nobody else knew that we were considering this particular concept. That day, I get a phone call from my grandfather. My grandfather would sometimes invest his own money in shares, but in my name, with the understanding that if he was to sell them, and this money and the shares had gone up in profit, he would keep the basic amount and I would get the profit. He calls me up And he says, oh, do you remember, Menachem, the shares that I bought you in Manchester United, as in the football club? I said, yes. He says, I sold them today and you made a profit of £2,000. So our minds were completely blown. Wow, what a message. That's story number 2. Story number 3. My Chavrasa, my learning partner, wanted to learn a particular topic, a particular subject with me. It's in Hebrew, it's called the Sheish Mitzvahs Tmidias, the 6 mitzvahs that we're supposed to be keeping all the time. And I had absolutely no interest in learning this with him. He kept on pushing me. I said, no, I'm not interested. So we ended that day and he said, well, give it some thought. Anyway, somebody came up to me and said, are you heading home? I said, yes. He says, I've got a hot plate that I need somebody to return to Har Nof. Can you deliver it to me to this particular address? So I said, sure, I'll be happy to do that for you. I had my car with me. He gives me the hot plate. I put it in the car. I go to the address. This is a home that I would never, ever go to. It's a road in Har Nof that I had no normal reason to visit. I went into the elevator, and in some elevators in homes in Israel, they put up sort of sheets so that you can learn different halachot, different Jewish laws. As I got into the elevator, there on the wall were the laws of the Sheish Mitzvahs Tmidias, these 6 constant mitzvahs. So again, I put my hand up and I said, okay, Hashem, I give in. Why am I sharing these stories? I'll tell you why I'm sharing these stories. Because I believe that Hashem speaks to every one of us. I believe that he's sending messages to us all the time. We all know the foundational story of our religion, that God spoke to our forefather Avram and told him, Lech lecha, go forth for your own good to the land I will show you. Rabbi Yehuda Aryeh Leib, Alter of Gur, known otherwise as the Gera Rebbe, in his book Sfas Emes explains, based on the Zohar, that Hashem is actually calling out to all of us all the time, directing and helping us, telling us the best steps to take for our own good. What made Avram special was that he heard it. Hashem is speaking to us and helping us. In Hebrew, this is referred to as hashgacha, often translated as divine providence. And when it refers to the individual interaction he has with each one of us on a personal level, it's called hashgacha pratit. Our Creator didn't just create us and then abandon us, letting us get on out with our life without support. He's there with us as a loving Father, cheering us on and giving us direction every step of the way. And that is surely something to be tremendously grateful for. The problem is that we so often miss these messages. He's calling and we don't hear. He's knocking on the door and we're too busy in our lives to realize. So here's the challenge for this week. The challenge is to start listening, both in our past and in our present. The communication is there. And when we become a bit more aware of his direct involvement in our lives, then we can start to feel the joy of gratitude in that too. Thanks everyone for joining, and I will see everybody next week.